Tyrone Wilson was just a janitor cleaning the executive floor when arrogant CEO Richard Kensington decided to make him a target. "You're too clean for a janitor. What are you really doing here?" The harassment escalated. The threats intensified. The coffee stains spread across his uniform. But Richard Kensington made one catastrophic mistake. Tyrone Wilson wasn't actually a janitor. He was about to become the building's new owner. Now, the man who thought he held all the power must face the consequences of how he treated someone he believed was beneath him. What happens when racism meets justice? When privilege meets accountability? When arrogance meets its match? Witness the confrontation that changed Whitehall Tower forever. Did Richard Kensington deserve what happened to him after years of discriminatory behavior? Comment below with your thoughts on workplace justice, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that show powerful people facing the consequences of their actions. Tyrone Wilson wiped his brow as he pushed the janitor's cart down the gleaming marble hallway of Whitehall Tower. At 58, he still maintained the disciplined physique from his 20 years of military service. The blue uniform was a far cry from his usual tailored suits, but the disguise served its purpose. He smiled politely at passing executives who barely acknowledged his existence. "Excuse me," he said softly, maneuvering around a cluster of young professionals deeply engaged in conversation. None of them moved or responded. Tyrone simply waited, then carefully navigated around them. His phone vibrated in his pocket. It was Lisa, his financial advisor. "Tyrone, are you sure about this? The board is anxious about the $65 million purchase. They want to expedite the decision." "I never buy property without understanding its soul first, Lisa," Tyrone replied quietly, ducking into a supply closet. "3 more days undercover will tell me everything I need to know." "You're the only billionaire I know who would pose as a janitor to inspect a potential acquisition," Lisa laughed. "It's precisely why I'm successful. The building maintenance staff knows the truth about a property. Besides, no one sees the janitor. It's the perfect cover." Tyrone had built Wilson Real Estate Holdings from nothing after returning from Afghanistan with nothing but determination and a small military pension. Starting with a rundown duplex, he had methodically built an empire spanning 3 states. Throughout it all, he maintained his core principle: know your property from the ground up. After ending the call, Tyrone resumed his rounds, carefully observing everything. The heating system sounded overworked on the eastern side. The elevator servicing executives' floors ran more frequently than the ones for general staff. These were details no inspection report would reveal. At noon, he ate lunch in the staff break room, listening to the maintenance team's conversations. Roberto, the head of maintenance, complained about the perpetually broken air conditioning on the 14th floor. "Management won't approve the repair because it's just the customer service department," Roberto explained with a sigh. "If it were the executive floor, they'd have it fixed yesterday." Tyrone nodded, making mental notes. The building's infrastructure needed work, but the bones were good. The location was prime downtown real estate. With proper management, Whitehall Tower could become the crown jewel of his portfolio. His phone vibrated again. This time it was Amara, his daughter. "Dad, Mom wanted me to remind you about dinner tonight. It's Tyler's birthday." Tyrone smiled at the mention of his grandson. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart. I'll be there at 6. "Are you still playing janitor?" Amara asked, amusement in her voice. "It's not playing, it's research." "Only you would do this, Dad. Most people would just hire someone." "And miss discovering that the west stairwell floods during heavy rain, or that the security system has blind spots on 3 floors. "Not a chance." After ending the call, Tyrone continued his work. On the 32nd floor, he began cleaning the executive bathrooms. As he polished the mirrors, the door swung open with force. A tall man in an expensive suit entered, typing furiously on his phone. His security badge identified him as Richard Kensington, CEO of Centrix Technologies. "About time someone cleaned in here," Richard said without looking up. "The service in this building is abysmal." Tyrone nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir, just finishing up." Richard finally looked up, his eyes narrowing as they took in Tyrone's appearance. "You're new, started this week, sir. Well, make sure you do a proper job. The last guy couldn't tell the difference between clean and filthy." Richard washed his hands, carelessly splashing water across the freshly cleaned counter. As Tyrone moved to wipe it up, Richard added, "And make sure you're not hanging around when important meetings are happening. Nothing worse than the help being underfoot when I have clients." "Of course, sir," Tyrone replied evenly, his expression neutral despite the disrespect. As Richard left without another word, Tyrone continued cleaning. He'd encountered countless Richard Kensingtons in his life, men who measured their worth by how they treated those they perceived as beneath them. Little did Richard know, by this time next week, Tyrone would own the very floor beneath his feet. Richard Kensington strode through the corridors of the 32nd floor with the confidence of a man who believed the world existed to serve him. At 52, his salt and pepper hair was expertly styled, his Italian suit impeccably tailored, and his presence announced by the subtle scent of an exclusive cologne that cost more than most people's monthly rent. As CEO of Centrix Technologies, Richard had transformed a modest software company into a mid-sized tech powerhouse through aggressive acquisitions and cost-cutting measures that the business press euphemistically called operational streamlining. What the glowing profiles didn't mention were the 400 employees whose positions had been eliminated or outsourced in the process. Daniels, Richard barked at his assistant as he entered the executive suite. Why is that janitor still on our floor? I specifically requested cleaning to be done before 9 a.m. Sir, building management explained that they're short-staffed this week, James Daniels replied, hurriedly following Richard into his corner office. They've had to adjust the cleaning schedule. Richard scoffed as he settled into his ergonomic chair. That's not my problem. I pay premium rent for premium service. If I wanted to share my space with the help all day, I'd lease in a lower-tier building. I'll speak with building management again, James promised, placing Richard's usual black coffee on his desk. Richard's morning proceeded with his executive team meeting where he systematically dismantled each department head's quarterly projections. These numbers are pathetic, he declared, glaring at Sarah Chen, his marketing director. Netflix didn't become Netflix by playing it safe. Where's the disruption? Where's the innovation? We've outlined several new initiatives on page 12, Sarah began. Initiative is just another word for thought without action, Richard interrupted. I need results, not initiatives. As the meeting dispersed, Richard noticed Tyrone through the glass wall quietly emptying trash bins in the open office area. Something about the janitor's methodical efficiency irritated him. Daniels, Richard called. That janitor is still here, tell him to come back later. James approached Tyrone apologetically. When Tyrone nodded and began to wheel his cart toward the elevator, Richard emerged from his office. Hold on, Richard called out. You're the new guy from yesterday, right? Yes, sir, Tyrone replied evenly. I can come back later if now is inconvenient. Richard approached, standing unnecessarily close. What's your name? Tyrone Wilson, sir. Well, Wilson, I run a technology company here. Handle sensitive information. I don't need unknown personnel hovering around during business hours. A young black employee from Richard's team, Devin Jackson, looked up from his desk, clearly uncomfortable with the exchange. I understand, sir, Tyrone replied. Building management assigned me this schedule, but I'll request an adjustment. See that you do, Richard said dismissively. Turning toward Devin, he added loudly, some people need to understand their place in the professional ecosystem. Devin winced slightly but kept his eyes on his monitor. Later that afternoon, Richard was heading to the executive bathroom when he encountered Tyrone again, this time cleaning the hallway drinking fountain. You're still here, Richard demanded, his voice sharp enough to draw attention from nearby offices. Almost finished with this floor, sir, Tyrone explained calmly. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Richard said, not bothering to lower his voice. There's something unprofessional about how you keep lingering around. Are you even qualified for this job? Several employees had stopped working to witness the exchange. Patricia Winters, Richard's HR director, approached cautiously. Richard, do we have an issue I can help with? She asked. Yes, we do this. He gestured dismissively at Tyrone. Individual seems to think my concerns about building security aren't valid. I've requested cleaning be done during non-business hours twice now. I don't believe Mr. Wilson makes the schedule, Richard, Patricia noted diplomatically. Then perhaps he should speak to someone who does, Richard retorted. Turning back to Tyrone, he added, I've worked hard to build this company into what it is today. The least I expect is to conduct business without distractions. Tyrone simply nodded, maintaining his dignified composure. As Richard walked away, he overheard Patricia apologizing to Tyrone. Irritated by this perceived undermining of his authority, Richard turned back. Patricia, when you're done fraternizing with the janitorial staff, I need those termination papers for the redundant positions in customer support. Richard entered his office, slamming the door behind him. Something about that janitor bothered him immensely. The man carried himself with unexpected confidence, observed everything too carefully. He made a mental note to speak with building management about proper vetting procedures for their staff. The following morning, Tyrone arrived at Whitehall Tower at 6 a.m., deliberately earlier than usual to minimize interactions with Richard Kensington. The building was peacefully quiet, with only security personnel and a handful of early risers present. Tyrone methodically worked his way through the lower floors, his mind calculating renovation costs and infrastructure improvements. By 8:30 a.m., he had reached the 30th floor, hoping to complete the executive level before the majority of Centrix employees arrived. As he pushed his cart off the elevator, he was surprised to see Richard already at his desk, visible through the glass walls of his corner office. Richard looked up immediately as if he'd been waiting. He emerged from his office with purposeful strides. Wilson, Richard called out sharply. In my office, now. Tyrone paused, then wheeled his cart to a discreet corner before following Richard. The CEO closed the door behind them. I spoke with building management yesterday, Richard began, leaning against his desk with arms crossed. They informed me they haven't hired any new janitors recently. Tyrone maintained his composed demeanor. I'm with the contractor they brought in to supplement staffing, sir. Richard's eyes narrowed. That's not what they told me. They said all contractors require special badges. He pointed to Tyrone's standard building ID. That's not a contractor badge. There must be some confusion, Tyrone replied calmly. I was assigned here by Eastern Cleaning Services. I can have my supervisor contact. I don't care about your supervisor, Richard interrupted. What I care about is why you're spending so much time on this floor observing everything. Are you casing the place? Sir, don't play dumb with me, Richard snapped. You're suspiciously attentive for a janitor. I've seen you examining our security setup, taking extra time around executive offices. What exactly are you looking for? I'm simply doing my job thoroughly, Mr. Kensington. That's another thing, Richard said, stepping closer. You're too clean, too articulate for this position. Most of the cleaning staff can barely put together a coherent sentence, but you speak like you've had an education. By now, several early arriving employees had noticed the confrontation through the glass walls. Devin Jackson, the young black employee from the previous day, hovered nearby with concern evident on his face. Mr. Kensington, I assure you I'm just doing the job I was hired to do, Tyrone stated firmly. No, what you're doing is cleaning too thoroughly, Richard declared, his voice rising. You're lingering around sensitive areas, you're observing security protocols, I want to know why. Patricia Winters, the HR director, knocked and entered without waiting for a response. Is everything okay in here? No, it's not, Richard replied. I believe this man is conducting surveillance of our offices. He's posing as a janitor, but I don't think that's his real purpose here. Patricia looked bewildered. Richard, that's a serious accusation. Call security, Richard demanded. I want his credentials verified and his access revoked pending investigation. Sir, Tyrone interjected, there's no need for. There's every need, Richard cut him off. I've built this company from nothing and I won't have some imposter compromising our security. For all I know, you could be industrial espionage or worse. Patricia hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Richard, perhaps we should. Perhaps you should do your job and protect this company, Richard snapped. Call security now or I'll do it myself. Tyrone remained composed as Patricia reluctantly made the call. By now, a small crowd had gathered outside Richard's office, including James Daniels and several other executives. Security arrived promptly, two officers who looked confused about the situation. This man needs to be escorted from the building, Richard declared. And I want his access permanently revoked. On what grounds, sir? The lead security officer asked. Suspicious behavior, potential corporate espionage, unauthorized access to executive areas. Tyrone finally spoke up. I have proper authorization to be here. Prove it, Richard challenged. Tyrone reached for his wallet, but Richard misinterpreted the movement. Don't reach for anything. He shouted, lunging forward and knocking Tyrone's hand away. Coffee from Richard's desk spilled across Tyrone's uniform in the process. A collective gasp came from the onlookers as hot coffee soaked through the front of Tyrone's shirt. Sir, please calm down, the security officer intervened, stepping between them. I want him gone. Now, Richard demanded, his face flushed with anger. And I want a meeting with building management immediately. If they're hiring suspicious characters to clean our offices, we need to reconsider our lease. As security began to lead Tyrone away, Devin Jackson stepped forward. Sir, I recorded that on my phone. You physically accosted him. Richard's eyes blazed. Give me that phone, Jackson. Company policy prohibits recordings in the office. Not when it's documenting a potential crime, Devin replied steadily, though his hand trembled slightly. Tyrone looked at Devin with quiet appreciation before turning to the security officers. I'll go willingly, but I'll need documentation of this incident. As they led him toward the elevator, Tyrone noticed Roberto, the head of maintenance, watching with wide eyes. Roberto knew exactly who Tyrone was. Security officers escorted Tyrone to the building management office on the ground floor, maintaining a professional demeanor despite the unusual circumstances. The office buzzed with activity as Roberto had already alerted Samantha Green, the building manager, about the situation. Mr. Wilson, I'm deeply sorry about this incident, Samantha began as soon as the door closed behind them. She was clearly flustered, recognizing the gravity of having the building's prospective owner treated this way. It's all part of the process, Ms. Green, Tyrone replied calmly, dabbing at the coffee stains on his uniform with a towel. This is precisely why I conduct these undercover evaluations. The security officers exchanged surprised glances, suddenly understanding they weren't dealing with an ordinary maintenance worker. Should we inform Mr. Kensington of your actual identity? The lead officer asked. Tyrone shook his head. Not yet, I'd like to document everything first. He turned to Samantha. Do we have access to the security footage from the 32nd floor? Absolutely, she confirmed, quickly navigating to the security system on her computer. The entire incident was captured from multiple angles. While Samantha retrieved the footage, Tyrone stepped into an adjacent bathroom to change into the spare uniform he'd kept in his locker. The coffee had left an angry red mark on his chest where it had burned through the fabric. When he returned, Samantha had queued up the video showing Richard's confrontation from 3 different camera angles. The footage clearly captured the moment Richard lunged forward, deliberately knocking Tyrone's hand away and spilling coffee on him. Download those files and send them to my legal team, Tyrone instructed, providing his attorney's email address. Also, I'd like statements from both security officers present during the incident. The officers nodded, one of them already preparing an incident report on a tablet. Mr. Wilson, would you like me to arrange a meeting with Mr. Kensington to reveal your identity? Samantha asked. Not quite yet, Tyrone replied thoughtfully. First, I'd like to speak with the young man who recorded the incident, Devin Jackson, I believe his name was. Samantha made a quick call to the security desk on the 32nd floor, and 15 minutes later, Devin arrived looking nervous but resolved. Mr. Jackson, thank you for coming down, Tyrone greeted him warmly. I understand you recorded the incident upstairs. Devin nodded, confusion evident on his face as he noticed the changed atmosphere in the room. Yes, sir, it seemed wrong the way Mr. Kensington was treating you. May I see the recording? Devin unlocked his phone and played the video. The footage was even more damning than the security camera views, capturing Richard's aggressive tone and physical intimidation from a closer angle. Would you be willing to provide a copy of this video and a statement about what you witnessed? Tyrone asked. Of course, but Devin hesitated. Mr. Kensington is already threatening to fire me for recording without permission. I assure you, Mr. Jackson, you'll be protected, Tyrone said. Would you mind telling me, has Mr. Kensington behaved this way before? Devin's expression darkened. Constantly, especially toward maintenance staff, security guards, basically anyone he considers beneath him, but he's particularly harsh with minority employees. Can you provide specific examples? Just last month, he blocked the promotion of Maria Gonzalez, our top-performing account manager, claiming her accent would confuse clients. And he regularly makes comments about how I'm surprisingly articulate. Devin shook his head. He's careful, though, keeps the worst comments for when there aren't witnesses. Tyrone nodded, making notes. Thank you for your honesty. I'd like to bring in my legal counsel to take your full statement if that's acceptable. Devin looked puzzled. Legal counsel? I don't understand. Who exactly are you? Before Tyrone could answer, the office door burst open. Richard Kensington stormed in, followed by James Daniels and Patricia Winters. There you are, Richard snapped at Devin. You're fired for insubordination and violation of company policy. Mr. Kensington, you can't just, Samantha began. I most certainly can, Richard interrupted. And you, he pointed at Tyrone, should be escorted from the premises immediately, not sitting comfortably in an office. Tyrone stood slowly, his calm demeanor unchanged. Mr. Kensington, I believe you've made a serious error in judgment today. The only error was allowing you access to this building, Richard shot back. I've already contacted the owner of your supposed cleaning service. They've never heard of you. That's because I don't work for a cleaning service, Tyrone stated evenly. I knew it, Richard exclaimed triumphantly. You're admitting you lied about your identity. Security, arrest this man for trespassing. The security officers made no move to comply. One of them suppressed a smile. Tyrone straightened his posture, the humble janitor persona falling away completely. He reached into his pocket and handed Richard a business card. Tyrone Wilson, CEO of Wilson Real Estate Holdings, he introduced himself formally. The company that's currently in final negotiations to purchase this building. The office fell into stunned silence. Richard stared at the business card in his hand, his face cycling through shock, disbelief, and finally dawning horror. This is impossible, Richard stammered, examining the embossed card with the Wilson Real Estate Holdings logo. You're the janitor. I was evaluating the building, Tyrone explained calmly. I always personally inspect properties before finalizing major acquisitions. The best way to understand a building's true condition is to observe it from the perspective of maintenance staff. Samantha stepped forward. Mr. Wilson's company is in the final stages of purchasing Whitehall Tower for $65 million. The paperwork is scheduled to be completed next week. Devin's eyes widened in realization. Patricia Winters turned pale. James Daniels looked as though he might faint. This is a standard practice for Mr. Wilson, Samantha continued. Building management was fully aware and cooperating with his evaluation. Richard's expression hardened as he attempted to regain control of the situation. Well, this is highly irregular and unprofessional. If you wanted to inspect the building, there are proper channels. Channels that would have shown me only what you wanted me to see, Tyrone interjected. Instead, I learned how the HVAC system fails on the customer service floors but receives immediate attention on executive levels. I discovered which elevators need maintenance and which stairwells flood during rain. And most importantly, he paused, looking directly at Richard, I observed how tenants treat the people they consider beneath them. Richard straightened his tie, visibly calculating his next move. Mr. Wilson, surely you understand that in high-pressure business environments, tensions occasionally. Let's be clear, Mr. Kensington, Tyrone interrupted. What I witnessed wasn't tension. It was discrimination, harassment, and ultimately assault. He gestured to the security footage still playing on Samantha's monitor, all thoroughly documented. The room's atmosphere grew heavier. Devon stood straighter, a look of vindication crossing his face. A simple misunderstanding, Richard attempted, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow even to his own ears. If I'd known who you really were. That's precisely the problem, Tyrone said. You believed you were speaking to someone without power, someone you could abuse without consequences. That reveals character, Mr. Kensington, not circumstance. Patricia Winters stepped forward, professional instinct taking over. Mr. Wilson, on behalf of Centrix Technologies, I want to extend our sincere apologies. Mr. Kensington's actions do not reflect our company values. Actually, they reflect them perfectly, Devon said quietly but firmly. This isn't isolated behavior. Richard shot Devon a venomous look. You're still fired, Jackson. No, he's not, Tyrone stated definitively. As of next week, I'll be your landlord, Mr. Kensington, and the terms of your lease include a non-discrimination clause that, based on today's events alone, you've clearly violated. Richard's face flushed with anger. You can't dictate my hiring decisions. I can enforce the terms of your lease, Tyrone corrected him, and I can choose not to renew it when it expires in 6 months. The implication hung heavily in the air. Centrix Technologies occupied 4 floors of prime downtown real estate. Relocating would cost millions and disrupt operations for months. Richard's demeanor suddenly shifted. Mr. Wilson, perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot. I'm sure we can discuss this reasonably, businessman to businessman. His voice adopted an ingratiating tone. Why don't we have dinner tonight? My club makes an excellent. I have dinner plans with my family tonight, Tyrone replied. It's my grandson's birthday. This simple statement, the humanity of it, seemed to further unbalance Richard. Tomorrow then, Richard persisted. We should discuss your vision for the building. I have some excellent suggestions for improvements that would benefit all tenants. I've already compiled my improvement list during my evaluation, Tyrone responded, retrieving a small notebook from his pocket. Prioritizing the HVAC system on all floors equally, addressing the accessibility issues in the East Wing, upgrading the security system to eliminate blind spots. Richard nodded vigorously. Excellent ideas. Centrix would be happy to contribute to those improvements financially. That won't be necessary, Tyrone said. The building's operating budget is more than sufficient once properly allocated. Samantha smiled slightly at this indirect reference to the preferential treatment certain tenants had been receiving. Now, regarding today's incident, Tyrone continued, his tone becoming more formal. Mr. Jackson will not face any retaliation for documenting a workplace incident or for providing testimony. Of course not, Patricia quickly agreed, shooting a warning glance at Richard. Furthermore, Tyrone added, I'll be reviewing all tenant compliance with building policies and lease terms over the coming weeks. Any violations will be addressed promptly. Richard's false smile faltered. Surely some flexibility. The same flexibility you showed today? Tyrone asked pointedly. Mr. Kensington, I built my company on the principle that everyone deserves respect, regardless of their position. That philosophy will extend to how this building is managed moving forward. Within 48 hours of the confrontation, Tyrone Wilson's legal team had established a command center in a conference room on the 15th floor of Whitehall Tower. The room buzzed with purposeful activity as attorneys and paralegals compiled documentation, reviewed footage, and interviewed witnesses. Lisa Chen, Tyrone's longtime financial advisor and now COO of Wilson Real Estate Holdings, coordinated the operation with clinical efficiency. The pattern documentation is particularly damning, Lisa informed Tyrone as they reviewed the evidence. We've collected 37 separate accounts of discriminatory behavior from current and former Centrix employees. Tyrone nodded, reviewing the systematically organized spreadsheet on his tablet. What about the building management records? Even worse, Lisa replied, tapping through to another document. Samantha provided maintenance request logs showing Centrix received priority service despite other tenants having more critical needs. The data shows clear preferential treatment based on Kensington's threats to terminate their lease. Roberto, the head of maintenance, had provided detailed records of incidents where Richard had verbally abused staff members, particularly those of color. The building's security team contributed logs of complaints they've been instructed to ignore when filed against premium tenants. "How's Devon doing?" Tyrone asked. "He's becoming our key witness," Lisa explained. After word spread about what happened, other Centrix employees started coming forward. "Patricia Winters has been surprisingly helpful too." "Not surprising," Tyrone observed. "She's protecting the company from potential litigation. Classic HR damage control." As if summoned by her name, Patricia Winters requested entry to the conference room. She looked significantly more stressed than during their previous encounter. "Mr. Wilson, thank you for meeting with me," she began, taking the offered seat. "I wanted to update you on Centrix's internal response to the incident." "I'm listening," Tyrone replied neutrally. "Our board of directors has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning," Patricia explained. "They've received the security footage and witness statements through our legal department. They're deeply concerned." "As they should be," Lisa interjected. Patricia nodded. "Mr. Kensington has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. I've been authorized to implement immediate anti-discrimination training for all staff and to establish new reporting procedures for workplace harassment." "Those are positive first steps," Tyrone acknowledged, "but they address symptoms, not causes." "What exactly are you looking for, Mr. Wilson?" Patricia asked directly. "Accountability and sustainable change," Tyrone replied without hesitation. "Your company has cultivated a culture that enabled Mr. Kensington's behavior. That doesn't change overnight with a training session." Patricia shifted uncomfortably. "The board is prepared to make a generous settlement offer regarding the incident." "This isn't about money," Tyrone interrupted. "It's about creating safe, respectful workplaces. I'm implementing new building-wide policies effective immediately upon completion of the purchase next week." He handed Patricia a document titled Whitehall Tower Code of Conduct. The comprehensive policy outlined behavioral expectations for all tenants, enforcement protocols, and consequences for violations. "All tenants will be required to sign this addendum to continue their leases," Tyrone explained. "It establishes a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination and harassment of any kind, including against maintenance and security personnel." Patricia reviewed the document, her expression serious. "This is exceptionally thorough. It also requires tenants to report internal incidents that violate these policies," Tyrone continued. "Which means Centrix would have been obligated to disclose Mr. Kensington's pattern of behavior long before it escalated to physical confrontation." Patricia looked up from the document. "I'll present this to the board, but I should warn you there may be pushback from some executives who see this as overreach." "They're welcome to find alternative office space," Tyrone replied evenly. "There's a waiting list of companies interested in premium downtown real estate with ethical management practices." As Patricia departed with the document, Devon Jackson arrived for his scheduled meeting. The young man carried himself with new confidence. "Mr. Wilson, our legal team needs your signature on the updated statement," Lisa explained, excusing herself to give them privacy. Once alone, Tyrone gestured for Devon to sit. "How are things at Centrix today?" "Strange," Devon admitted. "Richard's office is empty. There are lawyers everywhere. People who never spoke about his behavior before are suddenly sharing stories." "That often happens when the protection of power is removed," Tyrone observed. Devon nodded thoughtfully. "Several employees have approached me about forming a diversity and inclusion committee with actual authority. Patricia has tentatively approved it." "An excellent initiative," Tyrone commended. "Would you be interested in leading it?" "Me?" Devon looked surprised. "I'm just a junior analyst." "You're the person who stood up when it mattered," Tyrone corrected him. "That demonstrates leadership more than any title." Their conversation was interrupted by Lisa's return. "Tyrone, Richard Kensington's lawyer just called. Richard wants to meet alone." Tyrone considered this. "Schedule it for 4 p.m., here, not at Centrix." At precisely 4 p.m., Richard Kensington entered the conference room looking considerably less commanding than during their previous encounters. His designer suit seemed to hang awkwardly on his frame, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. "Mr. Wilson," he began stiffly, "thank you for agreeing to meet." "What can I do for you, Mr. Kensington?" Tyrone asked. Richard cleared his throat. "My attorney advised me not to have this conversation, but I felt it was important to speak with you directly. I want to offer my personal apology for the unfortunate incident." "Unfortunate incident," Tyrone repeated. "Is that how you characterize assaulting someone you believed was a janitor?" Richard flinched slightly. "My behavior was inappropriate. I was under considerable stress regarding quarterly projections and—" "Stress doesn't cause racism, Mr. Kensington," Tyrone interrupted. "It merely reveals it." 3 months after the confrontation at Whitehall Tower, Tyrone sat in his home office reviewing the quarterly performance reports. The building's transformation had exceeded even his most optimistic projections. Tenant satisfaction scores had increased by 37%, maintenance response times had improved across all floors, and the waiting list for available office space had grown to 12 companies. The new environmental systems are already showing returns, Lisa reported during their virtual meeting. Energy consumption is down 22% while tenant comfort ratings are up. The infrastructure investments are paying for themselves faster than projected. Tyrone nodded, pleased but not surprised. And the community initiative, exceeding expectations, Lisa confirmed, switching to a different report. The Whitehall Mentorship Program has enrolled 45 participants from underserved communities. Devin has proven to be an exceptional program director. After the incident, Tyrone had established a foundation to help minorities enter commercial real estate and property management. Devin Jackson had left Centrix to run the program, bringing his analytical skills and personal experience to the role. And Centrix? Tyrone inquired. Interesting developments there, Lisa noted. After Richard's departure, their board appointed Patricia Winters as interim CEO. She's implemented significant cultural reforms and has requested a lease extension with the new code of conduct terms included. The aftermath of the confrontation had been swift and consequential for Richard Kensington. The combination of video evidence, witness testimony, and documentation of past behavior had made his position untenable. The Centrix board had initially placed him on administrative leave, but as more employees came forward with similar experiences, they had requested his resignation. Richard hadn't left quietly. He'd threatened lawsuits against everyone involved, claimed conspiracy, and attempted to portray himself as the victim of cancel culture. His efforts had gained little traction once the security footage became public. "Mr. Wilson," Tyrone's assistant interrupted through the intercom. "Roberto is here for your meeting." Tyrone smiled, checking his watch. "Right on time, please send him in." Roberto entered wearing a tailored suit instead of his former maintenance uniform. As the newly appointed director of operations for Whitehall Tower, he now supervised the entire maintenance and security staff. "The quarterly systems evaluation is complete," Roberto reported, taking a seat. "The new maintenance scheduling software has eliminated the backlog entirely. Every request is now handled based on urgency rather than tenant status." "Excellent," Tyrone approved. "And the staff training program?" 6 maintenance team members have completed certification courses, Roberto reported proudly. 2 are already qualified for advancement to technical positions. This had been one of Tyrone's first initiatives, creating advancement pathways for building staff through education and certification programs. The results were transforming both the building's operations and the lives of its employees. Their meeting was interrupted by another call. "Mr. Wilson, Devin Jackson is here with the foundation students for their building tour." "Perfect timing," Tyrone replied, standing. "Roberto and I will meet them in the lobby." In the gleaming main lobby of Whitehall Tower, 20 young people in professional attire listened attentively as Devin explained the building systems. Most came from backgrounds similar to Devin's: bright, capable individuals whose opportunities had been limited by circumstance rather than ability. "Mr. Wilson." Devin called out when he spotted Tyrone. "Perfect timing. I was just telling our students about your undercover evaluation method." The students looked at Tyrone with newfound interest as he approached the group. "The most valuable perspective is often from the ground up," Tyrone told them. "Real estate isn't just about buildings, it's about the people who inhabit them, maintain them, and make them function." As the tour proceeded, Tyrone watched Devin guide the students with natural leadership and genuine enthusiasm. The young man had found his calling in creating opportunities for others. Later that afternoon, Tyrone sat in his office, the same corner office that had once belonged to Richard Kensington. The irony wasn't lost on him, but he used the space differently. The glass walls remained transparent rather than frosted, his door stayed open when possible, and he knew every maintenance worker by name. His phone buzzed with a message from Amara. "Don't forget dinner tonight. Tyler wants to show you his science project." Tyrone smiled, typing a quick reply. "Wouldn't miss it, heading home in 30 minutes. As he prepared to leave, Tyrone's attention was caught by a news alert on his computer. Richard Kensington had been named in a class action lawsuit by former Centrix employees alleging systematic discrimination. The company's new leadership under Patricia Winters had chosen to settle rather than contest the allegations, implementing structural changes and establishing a compensation fund for affected employees. The path to justice had been neither quick nor easy, but it had been thorough and sustainable. Real change rarely happened through single dramatic moments. It required consistent effort, structural adjustments, and unwavering commitment. As Tyrone shut down his computer, he glanced at the framed photo on his desk, himself at age 25 in his army uniform, standing proudly beside his first investment property. a rundown duplex that had launched his empire. The journey from there to here had taught him the most important lesson in business and in life. Character revealed itself most truthfully in how you treated those you believed couldn't help or hurt you. He switched off the office lights and headed for the elevator, exchanging greetings with the evening security staff by name. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight was for family, the foundation that had supported every step of his success.